Hey, this is Zara at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you guys a review for the Xbox 360 version of Omerta City of Gangsters, which released today in North America and last week for the PC. And understanding this title goes a long way to knowing if it's the type of game that you would enjoy playing or not. You spend a great deal of time in menus while you're organizing the takeover of a city in a small, intimate environment. If you're expecting combat similar to XCOM Enemy Unknown, an open-world builder such as Tropico, or a gangster-style SimCity, then you're going to be disappointed. It is heavy in micromanaging, but in a much different sense than any of the previous stated games. When you first start off on a new stage, you can raid and steal items from surrounding buildings, buy and sell firearms and alcohol, do drive-bys, and begin to slowly expand your empire to the outskirts of town. Once you have some free cash, you can purchase or rent new buildings to open up shops and also upgrade your own house. But everything revolves around the dollar bill and how you spend it. And after you complete each scenario in the main story and move on to the next stage, you start from scratch and have to do it all over again, only keeping your gangster squad's current levels. On paper, there are a lot of great concepts found in this title, but is it enough to validate a day one purchase? Let's find out in the review. The turn-based combat missions that showed the top-down battlefield may look vaguely familiar to those that played XCOM last year, but there are a few differences to discuss. On Omerta, everything is much simpler with fewer options, and moving your character around is a little awkward because the cursor doesn't snap into place as if you're selecting a block on a grid. Gone are the flashy mini cutscenes, impressive particle effects, and highly detailed animations. Both XCOM and Omerta revolve around stats and micromanaging before you go into battle, complete with customizing your characters and party setup. But the big difference is XCOM was mostly focused on combat, and you spent most of your time in that game on the battlefield. On Omerta, it is an important part of playing, but it has a much smaller role and feels a little less refined. Just like in Civilization titles, you're given a lot of options with how to handle situations, resources, and relationships with others. And while you never have to worry about a rival gang invading your territory, you do have to contend with the rising police heat levels and other business owners. And a lot of the situations can be diffused by just paying people off to avoid going into combat. And this title does have a day and night cycle, speaking of which a few of the nighttime battles were so dark that I absolutely could not see where I was going. I assume the enemy spawn points are randomized, but when you begin a stage, it can be sometimes difficult to tell what direction you're supposed to head in. Luckily, if you press down on the directional pad, the computer will automatically take over, moving your character in the best possible position and attacking as well. Once the fog of war lifts and you make it into a lighted area, things get a little less murky.
My neck is starting to hurt from looking the other way. That's gonna lead to a headache, but you're the one who will be feeling them.
It's a free country, innit?
As far as the sound goes, there were a few technical issues that I came across frequently while playing. When you first boot the game up, the music is overbearing to the point that it's very hard to hear the voiceovers. And I remember it was the same way when I first booted up Tropico 4. But a quick trip to the options menu cleaned all that up in both situations by turning the music way down and the voice way up. But even once I made that adjustment, the music and the voiceovers would noticeably drop out or skip around. It never happened during the cinematic cutscenes that played between the missions that were telling the story, but the boxes that would pop up that announced different story scenarios or colorful updates would start talking and then just cut off mid-sentence or repeat the same line a few times over again. I did decide to install the game to the Xbox 360 hard drive, and it did clear up a lot of the issues, but it would still skip on occasion. The one-liners that are spouted out when giving orders to your henchmen get pretty redundant pretty quickly. The music did fit the time frame of the game well, and when turned down and listened to at a low volume, it was enjoyable, but overall there were a few issues with the sound that hopefully will get ironed out in an upcoming patch. Game difficulty has been a hot topic in a lot of the early reviews that I've checked out, basically stating the game is too easy. One big reviewer stated that you had no opponents in the game, which isn't exactly true. If that were the case, you wouldn't have anyone to battle in the combat missions. You deal with situations from rival gangs and business owners which can be settled in menus most of the time but can lead to war in other cases. It's more of a competition of expanding your own territory into theirs and never vice versa. You don't have to look over your shoulder and worry about a rival taking your property from you, and that's where things get a little bit tricky when it comes to the difficulty. You're rarely ever in danger of losing this game as long as you pay attention to how much money you have, as you can buy your way out of the game overs, and money is very, very easy to make on here by just taking advantage of the buying and reselling of items. Unlike SimCity or Tropico titles, you don't have as much to keep up with because you're not changing prices of anything or micromanaging individual buildings. The entire focus is just taking over the entire city and managing your money and heat level wisely. You gain heat for doing illegal activities, and some missions just force the heat level to increase even if you do nothing at all, and it is possible to reach a point that you're left with no options and receive a game over, but it's very unlikely as long as you're paying even a little bit of attention to what's going on. In a typical city builder, you have to contend with natural disasters, crime, and whatever else they want to throw at you, and that's just non-existent here, which makes even the sandbox mode pretty mellow with little to contend with. The biggest challenge is just figuring out what you want to buy and who you want to fight if you want to switch things up a little bit. I love Tropico 4, SimCity, XCOM, pretty much anything to do with strategy building or micromanaging is right up my alley, but Omerta City of Gangsters is not a game that I would place in that same group of beloved high-quality blockbuster titles that I just named off. Technical issues aside, there were bright spots and some pretty cool features found here, especially the robust character level up system. Most of the PC reviews, which released a week ago, were pretty accurate and detailed a lot of the same issues that I discussed in my own review of the Xbox 360 version, but I really wanted this title to succeed, and even though it wasn't the game that I had expected it to be, I still gave it a chance, had some fun with it, but I came away feeling a bit disappointed as to what could have been an exceptionally great game. It's still addictive once you sit down with it. It can be hard to turn off, and it does offer online co-op play, which is good if you have friends that are into this style of game, but I would recommend watching some gameplay and walkthrough videos to see if it's right for you before diving in. If you go into this game knowing exactly what you're going to get out of it, then you may end up enjoying it quite a bit. It's not a high-flying, action-filled, explosive adventure, but if you're looking to kick back and casually enjoy playing a very laid-back game, it might be just what you're looking for. Anyways, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and thanks for stopping by.